Hey, if you're a pastor, a coach, a leader, someone that disciples people, I have a question for you. Have you ever coached someone who seems incredibly kind, even wise, maybe extremely emotionally intelligent, but when it comes to confrontation or hard conversations, they completely shut down? They say things like, I hate confrontation, or I keep the peace, but I lose myself. Or maybe they say, I know what I want to say, but I can't say it in the moment. Or maybe they have a habit of being the good person, the servant friend in every relationship, and they ask the question often like, when is somebody gonna be there for me to meet my needs? What you're hearing is not just poor communication, you're hearing the voice of somebody who's learned that authenticity costs connection. And today, I wanna walk you through how to coach clients who avoid conflict, not by pushing them into it, but by gently walking them out of hiding and into truth. Hey, I'm Spencer Robbins, owner of Alive and Free, a coaching company that helps Christians experience healing and freedom in their lives and relationships. And we also happen to have an equipping school for aspiring faith-based coaches. I personally coached over 10,000 clients over the last decade, and I make videos like this to help coaches or aspiring coaches like you to serve your clients more effectively. So let's start here. Conflict avoidance is not cowardice, all right? Sometimes we bring our judgments to the table when we sense that somebody has a character trait like that. That's not accurate, and if we bring that to the table, we immediately lose influence. It's usually just a strategy that's learned in childhood homes where anger, sadness, or disagreement were unsafe. So I personally remember feeling like I needed to walk on eggshells at home as a boy because of how much chaos my mom felt, how much overwhelm she felt. And there's a bunch of different reasons for that. You know, my dad was an alcoholic at home. He was somewhat dissociated. My mom placed tons of pressure on herself to always get things right. There's a lot that was going on, a lot of their own childhood pain that they didn't have the chance to work through. And so it caused all these different things to exist within the home. But regardless, whenever I had strong emotions, I learned to believe that mom can't handle my emotions. I learned that people are fragile. I learned that if I had strong feelings and someone else did as well, that only one person's feelings would matter, and that at least one of the people needed to shut down their emotions, and that usually ended up being me. You know, John Bradshaw, he said, when a child is made to feel guilty for expressing anger, sadness, or fear, they learn to suppress their emotional truth in order to keep belonging. So what happens? They smile when they're angry. They apologize when they're hurt. They numb out during tension. And as adults, they become the kind of people who disappear in relationships just to keep the peace. Meanwhile, probably they're building a quiet resentment in the background, maybe a narrative of how people are. You see, it's a core need of children to feel that their parents are okay, meaning their parents' needs are taken care of and their parents are regulated. Because subconsciously, a child believes that if mom and dad are okay, then the child's needs will be taken care of and the child will be okay. So if mom and dad are okay, then they can take care of me. So if the child senses that his or her parents are not okay, he or she will figure out how to meet the needs of his or her parents. I learned this as a young age. And since my mom didn't believe her needs mattered, those needs got really big at times. And she would have these really big moments of either emotionally shut down and withdrawing, or moments of extreme heightened emotion where I might hear like dishes slam in the other room. So I learned that I need to read her mind to make sure that I could find a way to meet her needs before she ever got to those big explosive moments. So I was constantly feeling like I needed to walk on eggshells as a young boy, wondering how mom was gonna be feeling so that there would be peace and love in the home as well as connection. Living this way taught me throughout my childhood, throughout my life, that people are fragile and they can't handle big emotions, and especially women. So it obviously affected the way that I show up in close relationships, and it taught me that whenever I'm feeling pain, I should just own it and never communicate it, because conflict meant that connection is gone, it's out the window. But the way I healed this pain was in moments where I had big emotions. I started putting my hand on my heart and telling my heart, Spencer, I'm so sorry that I told you that your emotions don't matter. Because at some point, I learned to mirror the belief systems that I had learned in childhood. So I started teaching myself and believing over myself that my emotions didn't matter. I had made agreement with those belief systems that my emotions don't matter. So I had to take ownership for those things. So I'd say, I'm so sorry for telling you your needs don't matter. I'm so sorry that I taught you that other people are fragile and that you have to shut down your emotions in order for other people to be okay. The truth is that your heart matters. And if someone can't handle it, that's their issue, not your responsibility in relationship. The feelings and emotions of both parties in a relationship always matter. And I had to learn that. Another thing that I had to learn how to do was to be honest and deal with my shame spirals that happened as a result of somebody having big emotions on the other side of me sharing my pain and my emotions, my truth. I remember one time when I was working with a life coach and I was really working through this insane people pleaser protector that I had to protect myself from those shame spirals. I just learned to please people, read their minds, love people really well. But a lot of it was living up here, and I felt this pressure to always be on and taking care of other people. Meanwhile, my needs were dying, my heart was dying, I was getting more and more shut down and feeling more and more disconnected in relationships. So I had this homework from my life coach, and one of those homeworks was to be brutally honest with every single person I came into contact with. And so at the season, I was at this bar, and this guy walked up to me, and he's like, "Hey man, what's going on? How are you?" And I was like, "Good man, good to see you." And we were bantering back and forth, laughing. I was cracking a few jokes, he was laughing, and we have this like little relational exchange. And I was about to walk away, and he goes, "Hey man, I like you. Like, you're a good dude. We should grab coffee sometime." And I immediately felt all of the energy get sucked out of my body. And I felt completely shut down, and I felt repulsed at the idea. Maybe it was this guy's vacuum of need that he had that I didn't feel I could satisfy. Maybe it felt like, gosh, I have so many friends I can't hang out with in the moment already. Why am I going to commit to a brand new friend and get coffee with him when I can't even go to coffee with all these other friends because I'm too busy? Whatever the reason, I felt completely shut down at the idea. And I was about to lie and say, yeah, let's totally do that, and never have any intention of reaching out. And if he ever reached out to me, to just totally ghost him, right? That's what I would have done, because I would have been able to save face and put on my people pleaser approach to it. But instead I had to be honest, and I owed him honesty, and I respected him enough to be honest, and I respected myself enough to be honest. Now, that didn't mean that I didn't have any shame spirals after this, but the way I responded to this guy, I said, "Hey man, I don't want to get together with you." I couldn't hide behind anything else besides "I don't want to," because that was the truth. That felt so scary for me. And this guy goes, oh, what? He just was totally expecting that I was going to say, yes, let's go do it. And his expectation made him disappointed. And that was probably a big reason too why I felt shut down at the idea, is that there was just this entitlement he probably had that I would just go along with it and say yes, like everybody does. But instead I was honest with what I wanted, and it affected him in a way that made him feel uncomfortable. And I just told him, I was like, yeah, man, I'm sorry, I don't want to. I have plenty of friends in my life right now that I barely have time or capacity to intentionally connect with, and I couldn't imagine adding another intentional friendship in my life, and I don't think I want that, and I'm sorry, I just really know that I want to be honest with you, and I owe you that. And the guy was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. You just didn't know how to respond to it, right? But I walked away from that conversation feeling extremely respected. I felt like my heart could have easily felt violated by me doing another thing, but my heart felt this energy of, oh, you fought for me, you guarded me. The word says to guard your heart. I guarded my heart in that moment. And whenever I saw that guy around town, he maybe felt a little bit of rejection, but he would have felt that regardless. He had his own rejection wound. It's not my responsibility to say yes in a moment and violate all my capacity to say yes to save him from his rejection. And honestly, it wasn't the loving and kind thing to do in that moment. The loving, kind thing to do was to be honest with my capacity and my desire. And so I did that. Now, that season led to me intentionally connecting with people in my life. And when I said, yes, let's go get together, they felt that I was purposefully and powerfully choosing them as a friend. Have you ever felt a friend that says yes to something, or they say yes to hanging out, and you just feel so chosen by that person? That's what my friends started to feel when I chose them, because they knew I was willing to say no to lots of opportunities. And also, I knew that my heart felt really loved and protected by me because I was willing to say no to things that violated my heart and my desires. Now, are we just led by all the surface level desires of our heart? Nope, that's a conversation for another time. But here's the thing, Scripture is full of conflict. All right, not as something to avoid, but as an invitation into growth. Ephesians 4:15 says, "Speak the truth in love, so that we may grow." The word for truth in the Greek is pronounced aletheia, meaning that which is unconcealed. Truth is not about being harsh. It's not about being rude. It's about revealing what's real. Pete Walker calls this emotional reparenting, learning as adults what we were never taught as children. Conflict isn't inherently dangerous, right? So that's what we get to learn now as parents, is that conflict is not dangerous. But we learned that all growing up. Now here's how this shows up in your coaching clients. They say, it's not a big deal, when it clearly is. They fear disappointing others more than they fear being invisible. They second guess every vulnerable conversation. They feel bitter about unmet needs, but never say a word. They spiritualize silence as grace, when really it's fear. Underneath it all, a younger part whispers, if I speak, I might lose everything. I might lose the connection. I might lose this friendship. I might be left alone. You're not there to pressure these people. You're there to model what safety feels like when the truth is finally spoken. Psalm 145:18 says, the Lord is near to all who call on him in truth. The Hebrew word here is pronounced emet. It means reliability, stability, and firmness underfoot. When your client starts to tell the truth about their needs, emotions, or boundaries, they're not breaking something. They're returning to something, themselves. They're returning home to themselves. And you get to remind them. Jesus never avoided hard conversations. You can see John 4, Luke 10, Matthew 23. The Spirit is called the Spirit of truth. Conflict doesn't have to mean disconnection. It can lead to repair. Conflict is actually the bridge that leads to true connection, heart-to-heart connection. Oh, this is how you really feel? Oh, this is what you really think? Wow, the veil is torn between those two people in conflict. And if the safety is there and they have a God in their God spot and they are worshiping the Lord and he is the meter of their capital N needs, then guess what? In this conflict, both people get to have a deeper level of connection. Conflict is the bridge to deep and intimate connection. Your coaching clients get to learn this. So how do you coach someone through this? Here's a 4-step framework we use in our work, okay? Number 1, locate the younger part. All right. Matthew 18:3, you'll by no means inherit the kingdom unless you become converted and become like a little child. You can ask your client, what did conflict feel like growing up? What would have happened if you spoke up in your house? What did you learn about anger or disagreement? Were there any of your parents, whether it's your mom or your dad, that you didn't feel like you could be honest with? Who did you feel like you could be the least honest with? What did that teach you about men, about women, about people? There's a lot of questions you can ask, but questions like this helps the client see their silence not as failure, but as a brilliant form of self-protection that they used in their childhood, that they can now outgrow and move on from in their adult lives. Number 2, practice regulation. Help their body feel safe. We all know it because the studies are out. There's a lot of science on it. Trauma gets stored in our bodies. We feel it. It lives here. It lives in our bodies, that energy in motion. Before we role play this conversation, let's do some grounding. That's what you'd say to them. Notice what happens in your body when you even think about conflict. And you can role play the conflict that this person's thinking about and walk them through it. And then you can ask them questions. How does that feel? Let their nervous system know you don't have to vanish to stay safe anymore. Number 3, scripted truth telling. Let them practice lines like, hey, something's been on my heart. Can I share it without judgment? Other lines like, hey, when that happened, I felt blank. I'd love to talk about it. You can coach them on some of those very simple guidelines of how to communicate their heart without just blaming and verbally vomiting on somebody, and actually presenting something that is just them sharing their heart, asking if they can share it without drawing conclusions over that truth. Now, this isn't about being smooth. It's about being real. It helps their adult self speak on behalf of their younger self. Number 4, celebrate the risk, not the result. Even if the conversation didn't go perfectly, even if they spoke up, they grew. You can tell them, listen, you showed up with love and truth. That's growth. You weren't aiming for control. You were aiming for connection. That's amazing. Your voice didn't break something. It built something. And listen, you can always clean up messes that were made. I remember when a client showed up to a session and she was complaining about how much conflict she and her husband were having in their marriage, and how they had no idea how to do it. They had no idea how to do conflict, and they were constantly ending up in these big fights that they just ended up walking away from each other and never resolving. So neither one of them wanted marriage anymore. It's a big surprise, right? You can't talk about anything. They were trying to figure out, why is this happening? Why are we feeling so affected by conflict to the point where we just walk away from each other? We explored more and more, and I asked the woman to share with me what conflict was like growing up. She was like, oh, my parents never fought. They were perfect. She goes, I had perfect parents. Yeah, a lot of us have great parents. Never a perfect parent, all right? We had to really break down, wait a second. You believe your parents are perfect and that they never fought? Listen, I can promise you that's not true. But the sad thing is that they kept that from you. They kept you from ever being able to see their conflicts, and they convinced you that they had a perfect marriage. But the unfortunate thing is, probably in their own shame about their fights, they hid that from you. And so you never got to learn how to fight. You never got to watch them. Relationship is not about not fighting. It's about fighting well, with love, truth, protecting, safety. bringing your honesty, holding space for the other person's honesty, and you never got to watch conflict or conflict resolution. So now in your marriage, you have this false belief that marriage should not have conflict. And now both of you think there's something deeply wrong with your marriage because you're having fights. The problem is that you never learned the tools for how to fight well and how to do conflict. So we actually had to help unpack their denial around their parents' perfection. And we had to help them understand that they actually missed out and lost a lot from their parents because they didn't get to watch them fight well. So we started teaching them how to show up with honesty. And it was hard. It was really difficult. It cost a lot of safety in the moment. But what it produced long term, those big feelings of safety within a marriage connection. And these guys started actually having real connection with one another, which was really powerful. So here's why this matters so much. We're living in a culture that is emotionally fragile. And many of your future clients have spent their whole lives helping others while suppressing themselves. Some are pastors, ministry leaders, caregivers, people who've spent years offering grace, but never learning how to speak hard truths without guilt. When they learn to speak, not with anger, but with presence, they change their marriages, their churches, and their legacies. And your coaching may be the first place they learn to do that. So to you, the coach, stay steady, stay kind, stay slow. Don't push your clients to fight. Lead them towards truthful connection, because that, not conflict, is the real goal. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll get more videos like this. I plan on doing a video soon on how to use helpful language in conflict, how to communicate emotions in high-stakes relational exchanges, which as a coach, your client will definitely ask you how to do. So listen, the work you're doing is sacred. Keep going. And if you're at all interested in learning how to become a faith-based coach, go to the description of this video and you'll find a link to watch our free training. And you'll learn a lot more about what we do with our clients. Hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more. See you in the next one.